Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Notes and Quotes podcast. If this is your first time here, I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining the community. I really hope that you enjoy this place. And if you want to do me a favor, I really love to hear feedback from you guys so I know how to make the best possible podcast for you because that's exactly who this podcast is for you. If you want to do me a favor, you can fill out the listener survey, which you'll find in the show notes, so that you can just give me all your feedback, whether it's negative, positive, whatever. I want to know. And it's less than a minute long, and it would really help me out. Thank you. Thank you. And let's jump right into the conversation. So, I have always had this kind of like burning question in the back of my mind about racial preference. Or preference in general, when people say to me that they have a certain type or they have a certain preference of person that they usually go for in dating, I've never understood it personally because I have always said that I don't have a type. And I know that sounds like, oh, a bit naive, maybe? I don't know. Maybe I do have a type because I know that there's certain people that I'm more attracted to than others, but it's not based on race. It's not based on like ethnicity or anything like that. So I've never, or it's not even really based on specific features like hair color or eye color or personal style or what. It's not based on any of that. So I don't know. I've never understood people who say that they have a type and then people who say that they have a racial type, like they have a racial preference. They're more likely to date a certain race or they just wouldn't date a certain race, has never computed with my brain. And to be honest, I've always felt a bit off put by the whole sentiment of having a racial preference. It's always felt like it's in the vein of racism. But then at the same time, I hear people who, have been or are in my network saying certain stuff like this, like they have a racial preference and stuff, but I know that they are not racist people. So at the same time, I'm conflicted. I'm just conflicted about the whole thing about racial preference. So what I decided to do today is do a bunch of research. I mean, a bunch of research about the notion of racial preference. And just like me, the internet is conflicted. But based on the stuff that I found, I think I've come to my own personal sentiment about it, and we're going to discuss that today. So, today we're going to talk about whether it's okay to have a racial preference. And like I said, this is based on my research and the opinions that I have. I am not putting my opinions onto anyone else. I'm just telling you my personal opinions, and you can take them or you can leave them. So, as always, we start with the quote of the day. Okay, so the quote of the day today is coming from Danielle Williams, who says, "The fact is, who we love is subtly and not so subtly influenced by the society and its rigid racial hierarchies. The racism that permeates almost every aspect of our everyday lives extends to our dating preferences." And I found this quote after I did the research and came to my final opinion because it kind of really encapsulates everything that I'm going to talk about. So let's jump into it. So there are many veins to the whole racial preference thing. There's people who decide to only date within their race. There's people who decide to date exclusively outside of their race. There's people who decide that there are certain races that they would not date. There's lots of different variations of the whole racial preference thing. So we're going to go through kind of each or most of them and talk about it. So let's start with dating within your race exclusively. Now, I want to start off by saying that it is okay to be more likely to date within your race. And I'll tell you why. When I was looking up some of this stuff, I came across this really very well explained article by Wussy Mag. Very interesting name for the site, but Wussy Mag basically said that opting to date within one's race is perfectly normal. The importance of cultural norms, comfort, relatability, and familiarity is the reason why many people would limit their dating pool to contain those shared experiences. So, when you're having a connection with somebody, the whole formula for connection is relatability, feeling like you see yourself in some other person, feeling like another person can relate to you and you can have a shared experience together, which is why it's so much more likely for people within their race to be attracted and be more drawn to people within their race. For example, when I'm around Black people, I know that I feel a lot more innately connected to them than I do if I'm in a crowd of white people, or if I'm in a crowd of, Latino people, or whatever other race that's not my own. It's not that to say I feel uncomfortable, or, I feel like excluded if I'm not within my own race. It's not that at all. Please don't misinterpret that. What it is when you're around people that look like you, that speak like you, that feel and see the world through the same experience as you, they have the same hair as you, like, oh, they have the same culture and race as you see yourself within them, and there's an underlying connection there. I might never speak to them. We might have completely different interests, but the fact is we have a shared experience, and so I feel an already innate connection to that race, or to the people who look like me in within my race. Hence why it's perfectly normal and natural for people to feel more drawn to people within their race in dating, and why so many people end up dating another person within their own race. If we look at the ratios globally of like interracial relationships to non-interracial relationships, there are more non-interracial relationships. That some of it is geographic, like, if you're, for example, in Barbados, where I'm from, it's more likely that you'll end up dating a black person because there's just more black people to white people in Barbados. But if you were in New York, for example, you're probably a lot more likely to date somebody outside of your race because it's just such a diverse area. So some of it is geographic, but some of it is also based on this thing that you're more likely to connect with somebody who has shared experiences with you, and you feel like you have a certain relatability with them. So it's okay to be more likely to date within your race for that reason. That's normal, that's natural. When it becomes different is when you, and I want to be clear about this, when you deliberately decide to only date within your race and are opposed to dating other races under the notion of it's not your personal preference. So, in other words, you could have the opportunity to date outside of your race, but you just deliberately opt not to. And there are a lot of, this is where we start to break things down into details. So follow me on this train, because this is where things get specific. This is where things start to really pull out different opinions. And this is where my contention kind of lies, where I didn't know for a long time whether it was a racist notion, the whole personal preference thing, or whether it was just innocent preference. And now I think I have an opinion. So let's go. When I know it becomes completely racist, there is a way in which it is completely racist, and it's to the extreme where people would say things like, and I didn't even know this existed, by the way, until I did the research and I saw this, and I was like, oh my god, is this like a sentiment that people actually say? That's just wild. So, trigger warning for this part, because I'm about to repeat something that is extremely racist and it might offend some people. It should probably offend everyone. And if you don't want to hear it, if you don't want to be triggered by it, please skip ahead a couple seconds so that it doesn't offend anyone. But some people have said sentiments like, no blacks, no spice, no rice, in terms of like dating and their personal preferences or their no-nos. Absolutely ridiculous, so incredibly racist, and obviously blatantly racist. So that we can park that to one side. There's no contention about that. That's just racist. But there are obviously people who don't use this notion to justify their preference thing, and it's not in such a harshly racist way. I think there are some underlyingly racist ways in which they do it, and that's what I kind of want to touch on today. So a lot of times the reasons that people decide not to date a certain race is due to certain unconscious stereotypes that they place on that race that they're deciding not to date, that they don't realize that they're doing. It's unconscious that they're doing it. So, for example, one person might say, I'm probably not gonna go and date any black women because they tend to be very XYZ, and they just list off a different set of personality traits or activities or behaviors that they class black women to do. And they might not even say it like that. They might be thinking it subconsciously, and they don't even realize that that's the reason why they're gonna deliberately not go for black women, because they just kind of lump them all together into this one set of stereotypes that shapes their identity in their mind of what a black woman is like. And that's why they don't go to date that certain race. That is racist. I mean, I don't think I need to explain how that is racist, but that is racist. And a lot of times people don't really understand that that's the backing behind their exclusion of a certain race in terms of who they decide to date. If they're deciding deliberately, like I said before, to not date that specific race, they might not realize that they're ascribing those stereotypes to a whole host of people. And that's why people, when they say that they have a racial preference, I always want to ask them in a non, confrontational way, just in a curiosity way, why? Like, what is your reason for not having a racial preference? And I want you to sit down, even with yourself, not even with another person asking you, but if you say you have a racial preference, sit down with yourself and ask yourself, what are the reasons that I do? Like, list out the justification of why you have that specific racial preference. In this vein, by the way, because there's still other types of racial preference, like I said at the beginning, in this vein of deliberately not dating a certain race, why is it that you don't want to date that race? Explain. And then I think you'll figure out a few things about yourself and about how probably problematic that is. And then there's also not only putting on certain stereotypes, but kind of carrying on really harmful, normalized notions about beauty standards that don't tend to include a lot of other races. So, for example, just innately thinking that white people are more attractive or prettier than other races, or white traits are more prettier than other races, like, small, slender nose, thin lips, being thin in general. It's just like a lot of those things tend to be beauty standards and beauty traits that are ascribed specifically to what is most times the white race, and that's not okay either. That's not okay either. And a lot of times, like I said, it's subconscious, people don't realize it. It's just about being aware and actually challenging yourself and challenging these questions in your mind. Well, challenging yourself with questions in your mind about why is it that I have these preferences, as they say. Because then it just kind of repurposes harmful sentiments that a lot of people get in dating, where it's like, you're pretty for a black girl, or I don't even know what the other ones are because I really try to put them out of my mind, but it gets a bit icky. And then we can even, oh, I don't want to jump the gun. We're gonna get to what I'm thinking about, but yeah, let's keep moving forward before I start to like get too excited about this topic. Okay, what I will say is I do have, I don't want to say a loophole, but an understanding for when people deliberately decide not to date a certain race. And that is with people of color. And hear me out. Sometimes people of color decide, I don't want to date outside of my race and I don't want to date other races for a very specific reason. And for this reason, I understand it. So, once again, Wussy Mag explained this brilliantly. Sometimes people of color decide to stay within their own race as a protective mechanism because they don't want to have to deal with the stereotypes or assumptions or whatever that they're more likely to experience when dating someone outside of their race. So it goes back to that same comfort and relatability and understanding. You don't have to worry about whether your partner of a different race, whether their family is going to accept you. You don't have to wonder whether you're going to fit in with their friends. You don't have to wonder whether you're going to experience any type of racism or exclusion or microaggression, anything, because you already have that connection. You are already in their culture. You already are their race. You don't have to worry about any of that if you're dating somebody within your race. And sometimes people of color just have gone through so much stress and so much of these experiences that they have to go through on a daily basis in their regular non-romantic lives, that they just don't want to have to potentially deal with that in their romantic lives as well. So they decide, just for their peace of mind, to date within their race. And sometimes I get that. Like, I honestly, I get it, because it can be exhausting as hell having to deal with these things daily for some people. Thankfully, I think some people of color don't have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. But it's even so, actually, I take that back, because you do Because I was thinking about myself, where I thankfully live in an area where I have not experienced any racism, I haven't experienced any exclusion or anything that I have been aware of, at least. Maybe it's happening behind my back. I don't know. I don't care. But I thankfully haven't experienced anything. But I still have to experience being black on a day-to-day basis, because these things, the things are still in my mind all the time. The way that I walk through certain stores, the way that I interact with other races, the way that I carry myself, all of these things I have to remind myself of. And then when I'm in a predominantly black area, it's like that side of my brain shuts off and I'm just like calm, and I'm not worrying about how I'm being perceived by others and how I could match certain stereotypes, and trying not to match certain stereotypes, and trying to represent for my race when I'm out. I don't have to worry about any of that. So that's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes people of color decide to date within their race so that they don't have to keep that part of their brain on all of the time. And I understand that because it is exhausting. However, it can flip. So, like I said, there's very different versions of having a racial preference. Sometimes you can flip it and people decide that they have a preference to specifically not date within their race. And they say, you might be black and thinking, I don't want to date. You might be a black man and you're thinking, I don't want to date any black women. You might be a black woman and saying, I don't want to date any black men. You might be a white guy and thinking, I don't want to date any white women. You're specifically choosing not to date within your own race. And this is interesting. Like the past one of specifically choosing to date within your own race for certain stereotypical reasons, this one is also due to harmful stereotypes that they ascribe to their own race as opposed to other races. But then again, they could be ascribing it to other races, and then it veers into fetishization. But we're going to get to that. Don't worry. We're going to get to that. But this is also due to harmful stereotypes that people tend to ascribe to their own race that makes them feel like, I don't want to date within my own race. So, a bit controversial. I mean, this whole conversation is controversial, but I'm really getting controversial now. So, let's talk about black and brown men deciding to not date black and brown women, like deliberately deciding to not date black and brown women. If you see a black or brown man with another race for their partner, don't immediately think that this is this is targeted to them. It's not that at all. Like, by the way, I'm not against interracial relationships. I actually am so for them. I'm not like for them in the sense of you should always date outside of your, that's not it. I just don't care. Like, date whoever you want to date. I just think that you need to be aware of the reasons why you're doing what you're doing and try not to make it weird. Like, I just want to make sure that people are just going into relationships strictly for the fact that they just like the person and they like who they are and they like who they are with them and they like their relationship and they want to see it carry forward. But don't make it a race thing, is my whole point. So, anyway, let's talk about black and brown men who deliberately choose to not date black or brown women. Now, I hear a lot of reasons for this that really make me quite sad. It's the same thing of stereotyping the women or men or whoever you date in your race by certain stereotypes that lump all of them together, and then you justify your reasoning for not dating them based on that. It's ridiculous. Like, you might say, oh, I don't want to date black women because they're just loud and aggressive and they're too much. I like dating white women because they're calmer and blah 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 blah. What the fuck? Like, it's just so, I feel like if you're a rational human being, I don't need to explain to you why that is so ridiculous. Why are you lumping in, I mean, millions of women into one stereotype and saying that that's why you don't want to date them? That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, but then there's also another reason, and I think this one is also equally sad. And I didn't even think about this one. I saw it when I was doing the research and I had to note it down. But there is a trend, and this is not only associated with black and brown men. This is associated with kind of a lot of people who deliberately choose not to date within their own race. And a lot of them sometimes, I'm saying sometimes, so let me not say a lot of them. Sometimes people choose to not date within their own race as an attempt to further remove themselves from their race. So, like I said, people of color go through a lot of hardships and a lot of just social, I don't even know how to describe it in short, but I think we all know that people of color have a very unique experience in the world. And because of that, I think there is sometimes where some people of color choose to date outside of their race as a way to escape it all. And then also as a way to kind of remove themselves from the stereotypes that are placed on them. Or sometimes certain stereotypes have kind of a self-prophesizing, that's the wrong way of saying it, but self-prophes, whatever that term is, self-fulfilling factor where a certain group of people might start to match those stereotypes. And then if you grew up in that, you don't like it, you don't like that this is what is you're being associated with, and then you want to get out of it, so then you go and date outside of your race. I know it sounds very confusing, so let me give an example. So, and I'm using black examples a lot because I am black and I can only speak to that experience. I don't know that much about the experiences of, you know, Asian people or Latina people or whoever else. I don't know those experiences as well as I know black experiences, and I'm not going to try to go and speak on those experiences when I don't know and I haven't done the research on those experiences. So I'll speak on what I know. One of the stereotypes that is really heavily placed on black people, especially black people in third world countries, is that they're very aggressive and violent. And that's so not true. There are pockets of people who then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, like I said, where they are aggressive, there is violence and all that stuff. Let's say you have a kid who grew up in that environment, in a very aggressive, violent environment, right? And he or she doesn't feel akin to all of this. And they're now thinking, because the world is telling them that black people are violent, the environment they're living in shows that black people are violent, but they don't feel violent and aggressive themselves. And then it's like a conflict, like, am I really black? Like, am I not, like, I'm not fulfilling this culture and these norms that are being placed on me. So I now feel like I don't fit in with this culture. So I'm more likely to go date outside of that culture because I want to remove myself from it. And for people who don't experience this, it might sound like a stretch. It might sound like I'm reaching, but it is an experience that I've seen happen to people. It's an experience that I've read online. It's happening to other people as well, where they just, it's quite sad, but it's one of the reasons that sometimes people of color decide to date outside of their race. So it can go both ways. Like I said, sometimes people of color decide to stay within their own race for, you know, protective comfort reasons. And then for the same protective comfort reasons, people of color try to decide to date outside of their race. But it is still harmful either way because stereotypes, racism, it's not, it's still fulfilling those same harmful notions, if you get what I mean. I hope what I'm saying is making sense, by the way. Like I paused for a second to just kind of think about what I was saying and kind of how I'm coming across, and I really hope that it's making sense and that I'm not confusing people, because it makes sense to me, and I just hope I'm conveying it in a way that makes sense to you as well. But either way, I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue, and then when I'm editing this in post, we'll see if it's making sense back to future me. Okay. Sometimes people try to justify the racial preference argument by arguing that it's just like wanting to date somebody who has brown hair as opposed to blonde hair, or who's like, you know, fit as opposed to unfit or whatever, and saying it's just their preference, blah 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 blah. And this is where I disagree. I think that that is a simplification of the whole preference argument. It's very 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 easy to simplify this whole thing and say it's just like having a preference, like how you have a preference for certain types of food. And when you say it like that on face value, it looks so simple and it looks so easy. And it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's totally okay to have a racial preference. But then when you break down with the questions, why are you choosing to only date within your race? Why are you choosing to only date with outside of your race? Why are you choosing to only date a specific race? And I think when you ask people why they have a certain preference for a certain race, then you'll find some answers that you might realize yourself are quite problematic. There are always, it's never as simple as it seems as just liking one thing over another. There's always a reason why you like that certain thing, and there's always a reason why you don't like this certain thing. And when you figure out and break down the reasons as to why you don't like this certain thing, you'll realize some very interesting things. Let's move on. This is the one I was excited to talk about because I have opinions. I have opinions. Okay, so the other side, the final side of the coin, because we talked about dating specifically within your race only and dating specifically outside of your race only. And now we're talking about choosing to date one specific race, whether it's, outside of your race, within your race, whatever, but just that one specific race only. Let's say, I don't know, you're black and you decide to only date Asians, or you're white and you decide to date only blacks. The difference with this one is like, okay, with the last two, it's the first one is easy to understand. You're only dating within your race. That's simple. The second one, you're only dating outside of your race, but you can date any other race outside of your own race, just not your own. This one is very specific. You're only deciding to date one specific race that you've chosen. Okay. So it's just very interesting. I don't understand why it just feels weird to me. The other two, like I said, there were some sort of justifications for them, like people of color choosing to date within their own race for, like just personal safety and comfort reasons. But this one is really weird to me. You are choosing only to date a certain race. I don't understand why. And there is a reason why. There is a reason why. But I'm trying to think of a justification because like I said in a previous episode about, always willing to change your mind. I am always trying to put myself in the other person's shoes, the other person's perspective, and try and rationalize why it is they might think like this. But I genuinely, and if somebody has a justification for me, please tell me, DM me, say it in the comments if you're on YouTube, whatever. But I can't find a good-hearted justification for this. So I can only talk about the one reason I can expect that it is, and I think it's fetishization. I don't know. It's not always fetishization because let's say you have just a trend of dating only white guys. I mean, that's fine, but are you deliberately only dating white guys? Like is it just a happenstance thing where you just end up only dating white guys just by chance, but you're willing and fine to date other races because you don't care? Or is it you're deliberately only dating white guys? If you're only deliberately dating white guys, that's when I think it gets into fetishization. And before the people who are going to get offended, I, once again, have some questions for you. So, here are the checks to see if what you are doing is fetishization. Oh, and if you don't know what fetishization is, you can Google it, but I'll give you a little personal definition. Fetishization is basically when you are, I actually don't know how to describe it. Wait, hold on. Actually, let me Google it for you because I don't know how to describe it properly. So let's get an actual definition. Okay, so this is Google Gemini's, their AI platform, definition of fetishization. Fetishization in its broadest sense is the act of giving undue importance or reverence to something, often an object or a feature of someone, making it the focus of sexual desire or obsession. It can also refer to the objectification or dehumanization of individuals or groups based on certain characteristics, often leading to negative consequences. So there's different types of fetishization. There's sexual, racial, objects, whatever. That's fetishization. Okay, so here are some checks to see if what you are doing is fetishization. Number 1, are you focusing on a single aspect of their identity? Let me explain. Or let me give an example. Liking someone only because of their race. Are you dating somebody and your main thing for liking them is that they are X race? Is that your main fascination? Like, that's weird. Saying, I only date Asian women because they're exotic. Oh, I hate the term exotic. When people call another person exotic, it's so offensive to me. It's just like, and oh my gosh, once again, I'm trying to put myself in the other person's shoes and thinking like maybe it's exotic to them because they're not used to seeing people like this, but it's weird for you to like fixate on that one aspect of them. Like what? Or if you can do it with body type as well. I only want a partner with a disability because I find it inspiring. Ooh, that's so weird. What, it's just weird that you fixate on one specific physical aspect of that person. If you're doing that, then that is a sign of fetishization. Are you focusing on one single aspect of their identity? And most of the time, it's physical. Check number 2. Are you stereotyping or making assumptions? Example. Assuming all black men are hyper masculine or that they have, you know, large members. Are you stereotyping all Latino women as fiery and like outrageous and passionate? Like are you thinking that all trans people exist for a fetish or that they all like are kinky or something? It's weird for people to do this. I don't, and it's very normalized as well. Like a lot of people don't realize that they're fetishizing people. And that's why I love these checks, guys. So check yourself. Are you stereotyping or making assumptions about an individual? Are you focusing on one single aspect of their identity? Most of the time, it's physical. Check number 3. Are you ignoring their lived experiences? Now, this one's interesting to me because when I was trying to collect these checks based on stuff that I looked up and research that I was doing, I didn't think about this one. Are you ignoring their lived experiences? So for me, if I'm dating somebody who is not within my race, I expect them to acknowledge the fact that I am black and I have unique experiences as opposed to them. I'm not expecting them to just kind of ignore the fact that I'm black and just like pretend that I don't have very unique experiences. I think that would be weird and a bit diminishing to my life. I feel like it's weird to, I'm using the word weird a lot, sorry, but I don't know. I feel like it's very strange to ignore the lived experiences of somebody of a specific race. And although I might not classify it personally as fetishization, I think it's something that you should do, you should actively do if you're dating somebody who's not within your race. If you're in an interracial relationship, I think it's very important for both of you to acknowledge the different ways that you experience life based on your race. I'm not saying to fixate on it because that's also weird. Fixating on the fact that you're a different race from each other is weird in your relationship, but just acknowledge at least that you experience the world in different ways. That's healthy. Check number 4 and the final check. Are you treating them as an object or a conquest? Whew! I think this is a big one in fetishization. Oh my gosh, guys, there was when I was in secondary school or high school if you're in America, uh there was this girl that I was like talking to. She was a friend of mine. Well, were we friends? We weren't really friends, to be fair. It's kind of like if you have that acquaintance that you smile at and talk to because it's like they're around and you talk to them, but you're not really going to talk to them otherwise. They were just in that weird, not a friend, but kind of a friend ballpark. I don't know. Anyway, I don't talk to her anymore. I don't know what happened to her. But basically, she told me this really, and I didn't understand how problematic it was at the start when I first heard it, but when she told it to me, I felt a bit off about it. She was saying that she almost has reached her goal of like collecting all different like racial experiences. So basically, she wanted to date like a black guy, or not really date, but sleep with a black guy, a white guy, a Latino guy, an Asian guy, a person in the LGBTQ community, all these different things. It was weird. 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 And I was like, and she was very proud of this. So that's the thing what I'm talking about. Like, oh, you finally achieved sleeping with or dating X race. Treating them as an object or a conquest is very strange. Just to say that you've dated or slept with X race is Very much blatant fetishization. And I don't like that. Also, with number one, check number one that I didn't say, fixating on like certain body parts. I said physical, but also talking about like, oh, black women have like amazing asses, or oh, it's just weird. It's just weird. It's just weird. Now, let me just say before people start to like get all itchy, it's fine for you to appreciate certain physical aspects of your partner of that certain race. If you are dating a black woman with a great ass and you like to appreciate that about her, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But don't make it the number one thing of focus in your relationship or the number one thing of focus in your mind. Why are you then making that such a big factor in your relationship? Those are all aspects of fetishization that I think people need to check with themselves and realize they're doing before it becomes very problematic. Okay, if you have gone through these checks and you don't fall under any of these and you're just choosing to date somebody outside of your race because you genuinely like them and are attracted to them, then that's fine and that's beautiful and that's wonderful and I'm thrilled and happy for you. And society or other people in your circle shouldn't make that weird for you. Like they shouldn't call you out for dating another race and like make it weird because a lot of people do that as well, which is just so messed up. Yeah, I think you should never have race as a deal breaker for a relationship, and you should never have race be one of the number one identifying factors when you're choosing to date a certain partner. To be honest, let's not even beyond race. Something about someone's appearance should never really be a deal breaker. Like, yes, okay, attraction is really crucial when dating and in relationships is the first thing that brings you to the table. You need to be attracted to the person. So physicality does matter, but you shouldn't, if you like somebody and they're of a certain race or they look a certain way, that shouldn't be a deal breaker. We shouldn't be so, I don't know, physically limiting when dating people. For example, thinking, oh, she or he is great, but they have glasses, or they're short, or they're too skinny, or they're X race. So that's why I can't date them. First of all, that's very sad for you and just like stupid, to be frank. Overall, I think my opinion, and all of this has been my opinion, backed by some level of research, but please, this is just all my opinion. I think it's weird to say that you have a racial preference because you are essentially lumping everyone in that race into one type of person when there are so many incredibly diverse human beings in a certain race that you could have a wonderful life with. And it's just a shame when people say that they have a racial preference and it's backed by really harmful reasons. So, like I said, with the whole racial preference thing, I think the best and easiest thing to do is ask yourself a series of questions like, why is it that I am more privy to this certain race? Like, what are the exact, specific, laid out reasons? Because there always are reasons, and you might find out a lot of stuff about yourself. Anyway, I've been talking for a really long time. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want some more of the Notes and Quotes podcast, we have so many episodes out, but you can also check us out on our socials. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube, video exclusively on YouTube. That's where you'll be seeing me in my room and all the countless water bottles and other shit on my bedside table over there behind me. Sorry. And then the hoodies in the corner. Look, I'm a real human being. I'm sorry. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. I really love and appreciate you all. And I will see you again next Tuesday. Okay, that's it. Bye.